This episode of the Infographics Show was made possible by The Great Courses Plus, an on-demand video learning service where you'll find lectures from top professors from around the world. Click on the link in the description for this video to get started with your free trial today. The pyramids are a true testament to the ingenuity of a people that lived long before any of our precise modern tools were invented. Egyptologists are still in disagreement over exactly how the 6 million ton structure was built. And when we look at the Great Pyramid, it's not just the millions of stones that it took to build it that makes it so mind-boggling, but the almost unearthly precision it possesses. This has become an enduring question. Was it humanly possible to create these buildings, or did something otherworldly have a hand in constructing these awe-inspiring tombs? There are over 100 pyramids in Egypt alone, not to mention the pyramids around the world built by other civilizations such as the Mayans. That these two cultures on different sides of the globe were building such similar impressive monoliths of the same shape has caused some to ask if the civilizations had any connection. Perhaps there was something that brought them together, whether it be that they both used the same powerful hallucinogenic plants, or maybe even something supernatural. Speaking to Psychology Today, one archaeologist said, quote, "The Mayan and Egyptians had good architects, priests, and technologists, but there's no proof for contact. No proof yet, but that hasn't stopped people hypothesizing ways the Mayans and ancient Egyptians might have had a connection." However, we will stick with just Egypt today though, and show you just how magnificent and strangely advanced these pyramids were. The structure we're focusing on is the largest and most famous of all, the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was built over 4,000 years ago, and that's far from the only mind-blowing fact. Just as impressive as the age is that the tombs of the pyramid are aligned almost exactly to true north, an astounding feat that seems almost impossible for the time. Ancient manuscripts give no clue how the engineers managed this, although most experts have concluded those industrious Egyptians must have used the stars. Not everyone agrees on exactly how they did it, with some believing that the measurements were too precise for humans of the time to have calculated. But one down-to-earth hypothesis is that they used a simple plumb bob, a tool that Egyptians used in the construction of monuments for thousands of years to plot the perfect direction between two stars. Even more impressive, though, is the hypothesis that the pyramid was built to exact dimensions of our planet. This is too long and exhaustive of a theory to explain in detail, but the gist of the idea is that the height and perimeter of the Great Pyramid are in a ratio of 43,200 to the radius and circumference of the Earth. Pretty complex for a civilization working 4,000 years before Columbus sailed across the Atlantic. But it goes even further than that, with some of the more far-out pyramid theories saying that the various dimensions of the pyramid relate to the mass of the sun, the speed of light, the orbital velocity of the moon, and much, much more. Skeptics state that if you play around with numbers enough, as is the case with most mystical numerology, that you can get any result you want. Nonetheless, there are still people who say the entire structure is an encoded message from the past. But how would the Egyptians understand these concepts long before the scientific revolution? From a non-human source, perhaps? But, and this is a very big but, that hypothesis only makes sense if you believe that these numbers are contained in the various ratios of the pyramid in the first place. Let's get down to brass tacks and the actual construction of the pyramid. The most accepted and mainstream view in academia is that it took around 20 years to build, with construction finishing around 2560 BC, and the result the Egyptians saw back then wasn't anything like we see today. There's lots of evidence that the pyramid was originally encased in a breathtaking, smooth, polished limestone. It would have looked almost futuristic at the time, a sleek, man-made mountain rather than the weathered pile of squared-off blocks we see today. The pyramid stands 481 feet, and each side of the base is 755.9 feet long and weighs an unfathomable 5.9 million tons. Notwithstanding all the great brains behind the operation, there must have been an awful lot of brawn put into the building. For 20 years, the work must have been non-stop, with its 2.3 million blocks being moved around and hoisted up to great heights at the rate of around 12 blocks laid per hour around the clock. I hope those workers got overtime. Joking aside, for a long time it was believed that it took 100,000 workers to do the job, and that they were all virtually or literally slave labor. It's now believed by most historians that it only took around 20,000 men, and that they were more like skilled workers, with a mix more like a modern workforce, with managers, laborers, engineers, and support living and working at the site. Believe it or not, evidence has also been found of a massive catering operation that fed all those hungry workers who went on with life as normal as they built a wonder of the world, with documents being found that state guys took days off for having a fight with his wife or working on my house. Now, back to the possibility of a little help from alien friends. Let's imagine you were told to get a bunch of guys together and build a 481-foot pyramid from stones you have to cut and drag from a quarry. Oh, and by the way, all you have to work with are very basic tools like pickaxes and chisels. You have no machinery to speak of, and get this, the largest stones you'll be using weigh up to 80 tons. For reference, an adult African elephant only weighs around 7 tons, so just imagine pulling about 11 elephants and you'll have an idea of what it was like to move those larger stones. And while most of the blocks were smaller, they still had to come from a quarry that's over 500 miles away. You're not only going to lay those stones with the utmost precision, but your workmanship and end product has to be absolutely beautiful and fit for a god king. Does this seem like something humans could have accomplished in 2500 BC, or did they require some help from above? What about you? Are you up for the job? Great! Get started today and we'll give you until 2039 to finish the job. But how would humans accomplish a feat of engineering so grand? Now, it might sound impossible, but there's evidence the ancient Egyptians used a kind of algorithm to work out the best way to get those stones to the build site and then get them placed. Newsweek has written that experts believe a sled was pulled with ropes to move the heavy stones. But really, pulling that kind of weight on a sled? Well, some experts now think to help pull the stones across the desert, they used a trick that was much simpler than asking aliens for help, adding a bit of water to the sand to help them slide along. A wall painting was found that looks to portray men using a sled to drag a huge stone with someone else pouring the water. As for the height, it's now generally agreed that a ramp system was used and that some kind of grease or animal fat was used to ease the path of the stone. So in all, we have stones being mined and shaped in a quarry, loaded on boats, dragged across sand, and then pulled with ropes. That all sounds pretty doable by humans to me. So we have an almost but not completely impossible feat of precision and a job that's extremely labor-intensive but possible for humans to accomplish on their own. Now, we still don't really know exactly how they aligned the pyramid with true north, or what the precise method of construction was. And as we speak, the idea that there are secret codes hidden in the dimensions of the structure is still being debated. But does this mean aliens got in on the action and then perhaps traveled over to the other side of the world and had a word with the Mayans? Not at all. In fact, it just shows us that ancient people were very intelligent and perhaps more advanced than we'd given them credit for. Maybe they had more sophisticated tools that we haven't yet discovered, and perhaps their mastery of math and astronomy were more advanced than we'd considered. But what if it wasn't aliens, but instead an advanced early civilization that inspired the Egyptians? We might add that while the existence of an advanced early civilization on Earth is unlikely, there is a theory called the Silurian hypothesis, which poses the question of if there was a super advanced civilization that existed, say, millions of years ago, would we even be able to detect it today? But the paper which first posed this question stated, while we strongly doubt that any previous industrial civilization existed before our own, asking the question raises its own useful questions. So let's make it clear the document in no way proves such a civilization existed. It only explores the potential for one. There is clearly still a lot we don't know about the pyramids and their construction, but there's a lot of evidence that they were built by supremely clever people and a lot of hard work. Those ancients might not have been given a hand from aliens, but what they did is mind-blowingly spectacular in its own right. If you're like us, you're probably wanting to know more about the ancient Egyptians, as well as other ancient civilizations like the Sumerians and the Akkadians. This is why we've been using the Great Courses Plus and have been loving the course History of the Ancient World, A Global Perspective. The Great Courses Plus is a subscription on-demand video service with incredible lectures from professors at top Ivy League universities and experts from places like National Geographic and the Smithsonian. They have over 11,000 lectures on just about any subject from science to literature, how to get better at chess, or even how to cook. So if you're not in the mood to learn about ancient Mesopotamia, and we don't know why you wouldn't be, there's guaranteed to be a course that you'll love. Best of all, the Great Courses Plus is giving viewers of the Infographics show a free trial. That's right, just go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/infographics and get started today. Now, we'd like to hear your opinion about this. Tell us what you think in the comments. Also, be sure to watch our other video, What Killed People Who Opened King Tut's Tomb? Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.